Sometimes we don't want to create an array where the size is fixed by a constant. So you can imagine maybe we want to create an array of marks, but the marks are read in from a file whose size could change from one run to the next, so the file is constantly being updated. So in this case we would first count the lines, and that tells us the number of items in the array, and then we set up the array. But it's not fixed as a constant, it's determined by the value of a variable, which is the number of lines in the file. So the implication of this is that we need some way of keeping track of the size of an array in order to iterate over it. And we don't have to use, as we don't have the constant to use for loop termination. That is, we don't have some variable or some constant that's keeping track of the size of the array. But luckily processing allows us to inspect an array to see how big it is. So every array is an object, and objects have what we call attributes. So attributes are information about the objects, like their size and so on, and we can check the attributes of an object using this dot notation. Okay, so to get the length of the array, we'd say array name dot length. Okay, so here's an example of how we might set up an array using a variable. So we declare an empty array of integers, in this case we call it numbers, and a variable called how many, which we then set to 6. Of course, in practice, setting this value might be done by counting the lines in the file and so on, but I'm trying to keep it simple. So we then create the array, not using a constant this time, but using the variable how many. Now we don't have to worry about using how many again, as we can subsequently use the length attribute to directly inspect the array to see how many elements are in the array. So when we set up this array numbers, okay, the value of numbers.length is now 6, and that will stay 6 for the duration of the lifetime of that array. So then we can simply use numbers.length to iterate over the array. Okay, so we can then say so long as index is less than numbers.length in the loop terminator.